Welcome to episode 600 of the Barcelona podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Dan Hilton, and we made it to number 600. If one podcast is the equivalent of one match played for FC Barcelona, the Barcelona podcast would only be outranked by Messi, Xavi, Busquets, Iniesta, and Piqué. So just in context. And to help with 600 is, of course, Levon, a.k.a. Barcelev, and you, the listeners, because this is a big listener question show, because some of you have been with me since the very first listener question show, now over 7 years ago, which was pretty much here since the start, the listener question. So, Levon, I think you joined me for the first time in 18, I think. So it's been a while for you too. I think year maybe 2 of the podcast.
I think the first time I joined as a guest was when Francesco Sousa was still there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
So yeah, 2018 sounds about right.
Yeah, right there. So yeah, that's in 6 years of time too. So and these listener questions, by the way, are from all over the different Barcelona communities and things. But where we begin with this is we're starting with the patrons, of course. And then we're probably going to take a little break to talk about the Euros because nobody asked about the Euros, which is unsurprising on the Barcelona podcast. Usually that's the way with international football. So we're going to take a little break. But first, we start with the patrons, of course, because remember, as low as $3, and you are guaranteed to have your question answered. And then we're going to be branching out to the closed Facebook group, Twitter, and Discord. And I'm going to see if we can answer as many as we possibly can. So starting with the Patreons, Christophs asks, looking back, how much of the current issues with club finances can be attributed to Bartomeu and company making lousy or criminal decisions, and how much do things outside of the board's control, that being COVID and other financial stuff, even the economy in Spain? Also, to what extent do you think these actions were in fact criminal and not only poor, stupid, short-sighted decisions at the time?
I think there was a lot of terrible decision making by Bartomeu. I think he got bullied into giving players huge extensions when he shouldn't have, and decisions on um, spending hundreds of millions of dollars or euros on Ousmane Dembélé, Philippe Coutinho, and Antoine Griezmann were also ridiculous because that's if let's say we do not include the variables there, it's 100 plus another, what was it, 120 for Coutinho, so that's 225 plus 125 for Griezmann, so that's 350 million. Not including the variables, not including the huge salaries that they gave those guys, because every time that you spend that much money on a player, then you know the salary is also very high. And those things, just those three alone, really, really, really hurt the club. I think they renewed Luis Suarez after 2 seasons instead of after 3 or 4, even though physically Luis Suarez, he was in his prime when they re-signed him, but he obviously went downhill very fast. They gave Alba huge extensions. They just spent money and spent money and spent money, and a lot of people were already like warning the community about how that was not sustainable, and that was before COVID hit. So then, obviously, when COVID hit, they lost a lot of the income from the Camp Nou, and everything went belly up.
Yeah, I like your answer, and I think distributing some of that speak about, because I think in the moment, to your point, that Antoine Griezmann was a 75 million euro, market value, and they spent, I said 120 on him. I didn't like the Coutinho deal from the very beginning. I wouldn't have spent more than 60 on him, but instead they spent double, and you mentioned all the wages and things like that. And I think part of it, of course, was the fact that Messi's wages and success created this unsustainable wage bill, which, again, the problem in the last even 3 years has been the wage bill more than it has been the income and the revenue and all those different things. And then COVID obviously was a worst case scenario timing wise, and extrapolate all those things. So again, the fact that Barcelona is working its way back and looking at the current issues, these are issues that can be resolved. And you look at the Espai Barça project as well. And when you're going to make that kind of investment and take on that kind of loan for the stadium. And it's another reminder, too, of what you and I talk about aplenty, which is Barcelona does, and most Spanish teams do, as opposed to the EPL and how they have huge ownership models. Any model with socios is going to be more dependent on the Barca Museum and on the gate revenue and on things that can change when you have a pandemic that limit the amount of tourism and guests and things like that. Because again, you don't have an ownership model where they're just throwing in an injection of cash. So I think the way that football is also run since then, not to pass the buck at all, but it is kind of being run differently when you talk about the EPL money that has also surged in the last 5 years and all those things like that. All right, we could talk about this for the entire show, so let's move on. Question from patron Mark. If Nico Williams arrives, and there's also a bunch of questions from Nico Williams, about Nico Williams, I should say, so we are going to pretty much skip through these and repeat ourselves a few times, but if Nico Williams arrives and with Rafinha not wanting to leave, how will Flick handle this wealth of riches at the wings? It's a great problem to have.
I mean, players get injured, so you don't want to have just two quality wingers in Nico Williams and Lamine. You want to be able to rotate. So I think that is straightforward enough. The question then becomes, so you have Rafinha who can play on the left and the right, which is great. And Lamine on the right, Nico on the left. If you add Ansu, that's two wingers for each position, right? And you can also play Ansu in the middle. And then you add Ferran, who I would probably be looking to sell if possible. Am I leaving anybody out there?
I mean, we don't know what's going to happen. And again, we have a lot of questions on other stuff, but Lewandowski, of course, is your 9, but then Vitor Roque, he plays on the left wing, or is he going to play to the center, or is he even sticking around? And then, as you mentioned,
Right.
the other option. So yeah, I mean, I think to your point, not to answer that question rather easily, but yeah, there are injuries. You never know. I mean, even last season, Rafinha was out for a month, and Lamine Yamal, reminder, is going to be 17 in a week, and that's still really young. And Nico Williams, while he does have a really good injury track record, like again, if you're spending that on Nico Williams, which again we have a lot of questions on this, if you're spending that kind of money, that means you can't distribute it throughout the rest of the squad. And we also saw even last season, was it 5 games that Rafinha played technically as an attacking midfielder because of the number of injuries in midfield? And so if you're not reinforcing the midfield with anything and you continue to have issues, like again, we don't have a question about it, but Pedri's out for another month now, 4 to 6 weeks. So he will not be beginning preseason with the team now, and it's the older they get, the harder it even becomes. And I know Pedri's only 21, 22, but still, that's the point. And speaking of Lewandowski, Thomas asks, seems likely Lewandowski will drop in level. With no budget to sign a striker and Vitor Roque out of favor, is the plan really Ferran, Rafinha? Do you feel striker is a position of need?
If you put it like that, yeah, definitely. I think one of the advantages is maybe Flick will be able to handle and motivate Lewandowski better. Also, you don't know what Lewandowski's form is going to be next season. I personally would not mind if we were able to sell Lewandowski and get his wages off the books. I think the club must be extremely disappointed for there even to be question marks around Vitor Roque, because they paid 30 million for the kid, plus another 30 million in variables, which, to be fair, don't look like they'll be paid out anytime soon. So the idea that nobody's even thinking about him right now, even I myself didn't think of mentioning his name, or at least not as a winger, is almost disastrous.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if Lewandowski stays, then he can only have a good season, because if not, it will be hard to see him staying beyond this one. I think he would need to play 60% of the games this season to get a fourth year, and if he plays less than 60%, we can cut him loose, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my biggest hope here is if he doesn't perform, that they don't play him 60% of the games. And with that in mind, you need another striker in there. So I would love for that to be Ansu. So I still have a soft spot for the kid. If not, Vitor Roque.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
Or Ferran, I suppose.
Well, I'm going to talk about it from the pure money position here, and it's that, to your point about Lewandowski, I don't see how Flick, who knows him from the past, and we also saw last year with Xavi, whether or not Xavi wanted to start him every match, he is the option. I mean, and you're also paying for him to be the option. Next season, his salary increases to 27 million euros per year. And again, as you mentioned, it technically is a contract till June of 2026. So there's still 3 years in theory remaining on it, with that's 81 million euros total due for a 35-year-old who's turning 36. And so
Wait, I thought he had a 4-year deal.
there's 3 years remaining on it. He signed it in 2022, and then that's what it says here. And then 2022 he signed it, and it in theory expires in 2026 on a 3-year deal. So I think maybe there's 2 option years left.
Those are 2 more years. Because we're going to go into 24, 25,
Correct.
and then the season after will be 25, 26. So the summer of 26.
Right.
That will be it,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
You scared me there. I was like, oh my God. Another 3 years of Robert Lewandowski. No, I can't take this.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing about Vitor Roque is on the opposite end of that spectrum, is that he signed a deal very much similar to the ones that Chelsea players signed, where their wages aren't very high. So that's why you're like, how is Chelsea affording all of these young kids? It's because they're signing them for these huge long contracts. And this is the one example of Barcelona doing that. It's an 8-year deal set to expire in 2031, and he only makes 3.5 per season, which puts him right in the range of Orta Romeu and Iñaki Peña. That's the kind of wages that Vitor Roque is bringing in. But again, it's on an 8-year deal, so there's quite a bit of guaranteed money, but still in total, it's only 28 million over the course of those 8 years, with the exception of the fact that because he's 18 years old, that he would have those performance-based incentives, and he would renew very quickly if he was able to acclimate, and it would all work out for him. But that's the interesting thing about Vitor Roque too, that basically at the moment, and the reason you hear all this stuff about him potentially being sold, is that because his wages in theory are stretched out the way they are and aren't going to be affected by amortization the way that they are, if he's able to be resold for 45 million or whatever it would be, but again, his value, that's the real question, right? Has his value completely crashed in 6 months because Barcelona pushed to bring him over quicker? So this is an example where on the wage bill, which is the problem, again, not income, I don't see, it doesn't make any sense for me for Barcelona to cut bait unless they really see that we don't trust this kid zero. We trust him zero. It's not going to work out. We gotta sell him while we can still make some kind of profit on him, or we can flip it.
I mean, that profit should be easy to make, right? Because his wages are 3.5.
Yeah.
Then if he signed an 8-year deal for 30 million, for a 30 million signing fee, those 30 million will also be divided by 8 for the amortization. So what is that? That's a bit less than 4 million a year.
Mhm.
So if they sell him for 20 million, then basically they'll have made 20 million minus 4 minus 3.5. They'll have made a 12, 13 million euro profit
Right.
on it, which would help us in fair play. But you know, I don't think that is a way that a club should try to do. Just sign players and then hardly play them and sell them on because of some accounting tricks. Like, it makes no sense.
Well, yeah, he was also bought for a need. Like with it sounds so silly that we're litigating teenagers being sold off, but because Mark Gue decided to leave, that was basically the other young striker that you'd have, and then the other one in the academy, Oscar Gustau, is only 15 years old or turning 16 now. So you don't.
And we'll see if that was such a great decision of him to leave for Chelsea, just because they have give him a bit more money, and they say he will get opportunities in the first team. I mean, the kid is 18.
I believe it when I see it.
I think it would have been better for him to either go to a smaller club where he will get playing time, or stay at Barca.
Yeah, I mean, I there's a chance that he's on their books for 7 years and plays 3 appearances for them, and they all might come this season and he's out on loan in perpetuity. That's totally possible. All right, 6, the Great 8 says, Kounde now should know he is a right back. We have Hector Fort, Julian Araujo, and Julian Araujo as backups. Please speak on the prospect of having Balde and Alex Valle as the left back options, and could Mika Faye step in a pinch? Faye is another interesting one. I'll actually start this answer with him. And I was interested to see those negotiations with Porto. Barca said, "Hey, this is the number we want, and if you don't meet it, then we're not going to sell this kid. We don't have to." And they didn't, and they held their line. And I think in the last 2-3 seasons, we've seen that where they've kind of been, not to say swindled, but you could tell that because of the financial needs of financial fair play, they've kind of been pushed. But they set their line on Fayed, and they said, "No, we're gonna have him, unless somebody else comes in with a Godfather offer. We're gonna have Hansi Flick look at him." The only thing that kind of ruffled my feather a little bit, and I'm not sure if this was coming from, we'll say, inside the house to try to get him to potentially, or try to convince Porto to sell him off, but apparently the stuff from inside his camp is that he does not want to be a left back, that he wants to be a center back. But it's funny that I'm answering this question about Kounde, because if Kounde, who came for 70 million from Sevilla, didn't have the pull to say, "Hey, I want to be a center back," and now he's a right back and he's excelling as a right back with France and with Barcelona, if Kounde didn't have the pull, we'll say, to decide whether he was a center back or right back, I think if Hansi Flick says, "Hey, you want first team minutes, I don't really trust Alex Valle," then Mika Faye, can you play left back for the first team? But he also does play as a left center back for Barca Athletic. And as I spoke on the show last week, or with the big La Masia show we did, watching Barca Athletic as much as I tried to do this season, he is error prone. All the tools that he has, as in his ball playing ability, his physical tools, everything is there for him in 2 seasons to be really good, like really, really special. All of the raw tools are there. But a reminder again that 1 year ago, was still playing in the Croatian second division, where he'd only played for 6 months. So he really has not had much professional football at all. And I thought there were really good moments under Rafa Marquez, but how often it was like, maybe I'd say 10%, 15% of the goals you could pretty much, the Barca Athletic conceded this season, pin on him. And either positioning or errors or just some lack of focus or something like that. And so there is time for him to refine those things. And I think there is no reason this season why he can't have some minutes and have some time. And I would also, a reminder too, the news came out this week that Cancelo would be complicated, but I still do think Cancelo is going to be done. Whether it's a loan, likely it'll be a loan with a right to purchase option, as in Barcelona have to then buy him in 2025. I don't want to talk about João Felix yet. I think we have questions on him later. But as far as Cancelo, I do expect Cancelo to be back. So I think I'm not actually sure about Julian Araujo. That might be an example where they then sell him on, kind of, and say, all right, we bought him for 4 and we're going to sell him for 6 or 7. And I could see that happening over the summertime if Hansi Flick doesn't trust him or like him. So that could happen quickly. Then Hector Ford is able to play left back or right back. So I do think if Balde is healthy, you have enough options, even if you're getting rid of Julian Araujo or Alex Valle doesn't have a future there, or Faye does, and his camp does push during preseason if Flick doesn't trust him and all those things. And then I do think Cancelo is going to be around. But Kounde is the consummate right back starter. And when you have just a starter locked in every time in 10, if anything, I'm optimistic that Balde will be able to rebound and have a better season than he did last season, where it really felt like he regressed a bit compared to 2 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. I think my only problem with Kounde as a starter is that when you start Kounde, you need somebody with real football quality on the left, like Cancelo.
Mm-hmm.
Because Kounde keeps everything very simple. As a right back, by all accounts, he has accepted his role. He has been practicing and drilling crosses, for example. So he has really embraced the fact that, or at least, I don't know if he embraced it, but he's really accepted the fact that, unlike last summer when he almost refused, he ended up at right back again. And he's also playing there for France now, so I think it's going to be one of those situations where, hey, another season or 2 at right back, and guess what, Kounde, you're a right back. But ideally, you would have somebody with creativity and very strong passing and associative skills on the left, which without Cancelo we do not really have, unless Hector Ford can be that guy. I always see Balde more as a not really a defensive back, but he doesn't have that creativity. So I don't like it when Balde starts almost as a left wing,
Hmm.
for example. The way that you could play Cancelo. I have not seen enough of Hector Ford to make a judgment there. Maybe you have.
His crossing is very good, and he'll have the occasional moment where he can come inside. But as far as like a dribbler or someone that's going to be able to go 1v1, I don't think that's in his future. He began as a center back, and it was a center back and a right center back. So I think he's a very high ceiling in that kind of role. But to your point, yeah, I don't really see him as that initiating again, getting up on the wing 1v1. I think that might be refined in his game, but I think he's a good crosser too. As I said, I think that's part of his journey.
Okay.
Yeah. And for Balde, to your point too, I feel like Balde he's such an all around good player where defensively, I mean, obviously, I think he's much better than Cancelo defensively. But offensively,
Hmm.
to your point, what you kind of lose with that. And it's funny with France, just a little Euro talk. I know international football is different, but France has Teo Hernandez on the left side, and they've got Kounde on the right. And
Right.
how much has Kounde? Other teams have done a really good job in the Euro forcing France to have Kounde be the one to push forward on that right side, and they've constantly attacked Teo Hernandez on the left side. And Kounde's had to be put in a lot of different circumstances where he's had to deliver a final ball and figure these things out and problem solve. And France has not scored. It is still right from yesterday. Yeah, they've not scored a single goal from open play, and yet they're on to the quarterfinals. So, or no, yeah, they're through the quarterfinals. Sorry.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was rough watching France Portugal yesterday.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I'm glad I watched
yeah, it was
double
well
speed
fun.
just to get through it because I saw the result
Hmm.
before I saw the game. So I was like, all right, so that'd be
Okay.
0.
Yeah, right,
All right.
right. You know.
Yeah. And so I think teams are showing you kind of a quote unquote worst case scenario with Kounde, where Kounde he's also been man of the match on at least one occasion for France, and I think that was in the first round of the knockouts. And he's been so important to them, but you don't want Kounde to have to be offensively that important to you. You want him to just kind of focus on
Right.
defensive stuff. So that'll be something for Hansi Flick to kind of have to figure out. And another option he might have from Little Blue Truck. Now, Little Blue Truck, you said will Andy, but I think looking at the keyboard here with where the D and the S and the U and the Y are, I think you meant Ansu. So I'm going to assume that you meant Ansu here. Will Ansu get another chance at Barcelona? He is still so young. And I'm actually confused when we talk about the money about his contract. It seems here like his contract is at 2.7 million at this point till 2027, right? Because I remember the wages were at around 10 to 12, which isn't right. I
Hmm.
think this is still being counted as the portion of it that Brighton were paying. So I think this is still technically what was on the loan because there's 4 years left on it till 2027 at 10 total. So I think the 2.7 is just what Barca was paying on their salary cap against with the Brighton loan. So that I don't think that's right.
Exactly. So Brighton took care of most of the salary. Why they would not pay a full salary, being a Premier League club and all, I don't know. But yeah, I remember it being around 9 to 10
Yeah,
million when it was first announced. So I think that's probably one of the biggest problems.
it's too
Also,
it's too
because
high for his projection. Yeah.
it's too high for how he's been playing the last 2 seasons. Um, and I keep reading stuff, reading different stuff. So like one day I'll read, hey, Barca's looking to get rid of him. The other day I read, hey, Hansi Flick thinks that he can um, get him back on track. I still hope for the latter, man. He's such a good kid. And um, if if he finds his way, like he could still become an absolute icon for the club. So I would not give up on that.
Yeah, he mainly
But then again, like if you keep Ansu, you're gonna sacrifice Vitor Roque. And that doesn't make sense either. So who knows?
Yeah, I mean, maybe not. He played interestingly enough last season. He won. His only injuries were a calf injury, so he was able to avoid additional hamstring injuries. So he was technically able to stay muscle healthy because again, it was a calf injury, which was a muscle, but it
Hmm.
was a different kind of injury. He
All
also
right.
generally played as attacking midfield.
How
Yeah, go ahead.
would he have avoided the hamstring injury? if he had not injured his calf.
You mean would he avoided the calf injury if he hadn't had answered it, or the knee injuries? But the fact that he didn't have a knee injury last season. So yes to your answer, by the way, about the calf injury. Everything's connected to the lower half of the body. But the fact that it wasn't an actual knee injury, he didn't have to have another surgery. He's able to avoid that for the
No, I'm
last
saying like he spent
17
half the
months. I
time
think
injured,
that's
so
all
he could not
positive.
re-injure his knee because he was already injured.
Sure. Sure. He did play 30 matches last season, though, which is a good sign for him. However, he still only played about 1,000 minutes. So when you look at the minutes compared to the actual matches, only contributed 4 goals, 1 assist over the 30 matches and 1,000 minutes he played, mainly an attacking midfielder, even in Brighton. Because every time I try to watch him for Brighton, and I did, I think I watched at least 7 of his 19 appearances. Because again, he also would come in as a sub, so it was really easy just to check out the small minutes he had. And to me, it was that they had too many cooks in the kitchen for Brighton. And the worry is, does Barcelona have too many because they're not going to be able to invest in him? But I think the one positive I have about Ansu, then we'll move on, is that he is 21. He turns 22 in October. And still at that age, even for the diluted player that he is, because, obviously 3 years ago, we're saying he's going to be like one of the guys. He could be an all-time player, da-da-da-da. And that's what his ceiling was. Now his ceiling is much lower,
Yeah,
but being only 22, all it takes is one season, right? Like even look at, I know this kid's even younger, but look at a player like a Cole Palmer for Chelsea, where what was his numbers before this past season where he turned 22 in May. So it was his 21 to 22 season. In theory, that's Ansu. It's 21 to 22. Cole Palmer was just fine. He was an average-ish player, and not to say that nobody was thinking about him, but he wasn't some kind of major. He was playing for Man City, but really wasn't looking like he was going to feature. It looked like he'd be another one of those like prodigy kids that wound up not really making it too much. I know he played for the U21s for England, but he wasn't something. And now all of a sudden for Chelsea, he absolutely explodes, goes crazy, has a nuts of a year. So I'm saying all it takes is 1 year, and I think that's my hope for Ansu, that he goes from not really being able to contribute, not really having a place, and then just something clicks. We saw when he was 17, like under Valverde, like just something clicked, and he had some confidence. And for a forward like that, confidence goes a long way. So that's my half glass full. The tools are there, and you and I have talked about his finishing again since we saw him in 2019, right? When he got called up in 2019, the finishing, the natural instinct to be able to hit a ball like that, you cannot teach that. So if Hansi Flick's able to put him in the right positions, and I know I've been saying if, and that's the case until he contributes. But I think even with the 10 million euro salary, if they're able to see something and João Felix isn't returning, because I know he was on loan, but that's a guy that also commands huge wages. And if I'm saying, hey, Jorge Mendes, we're going to take on one of your clients who probably get paid too much, and we're going to take a shot on him, I'd still rather do that for Ansu, even with all the injury stuff, than João Felix. That's just me.
yeah. So a couple of things here. I don't know if his ceiling has dropped. I guess that would depend on his fitness and whether he ever regains full fitness or not. I've not watched him at Brighton, so I cannot really argue that one way or the other. But if he regains his previous fitness, then his ceiling is the same. It's just that his floor has become so much lower because we thought the floor was what he showed the first 2 seasons. Because normally, you become better after your first 2 seasons as a pro, especially if you turn pro at the age of 16. Um, so it's more of a floor problem than a ceiling problem in my mind. And then it becomes, well, is the club and the coach willing to put up with that floor in order to try to reach for the ceiling?
Yeah, for sure. Because when you play for Barcelona, like when you play for Real Madrid and you're a Spanish player, you go from it's not working out here and you have to be jettisoned to the sun to then now you're starting for Spain. I mean, look at Ferran Torres. Ferran Torres is coming off the bench, playing the same role he played for Barcelona
Hmm.
for Spain. And if he was playing for any other club that wasn't Barca or Real Madrid, or maybe even Atletico Madrid, is Ferran Torres in the Euro squad for Spain this season? I mean, I know he's been part of their stuff since he was with Man City. I don't think he debuted when he was at Valencia yet. I think he was still with the U21s.
Mm, I mean, if he'd moved to a smaller club, then he would play more. And yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
and he'd probably still be on the bench.
Right.
But if he got like, I don't know, 18, 19, 20 goals a season for Real Sociedad because they play him every match,
Hmm.
he might be on the squad.
I mean, the worry then, the big risk is if he goes there and doesn't play. And I think Barca's still like seeing him as an asset where if they are going to ever sell Ansu, you have to manage to basically have an excuse as to why if you buy him, he could get something for you. And so like Brighton, they had enough forward options where again, I looked at their bench and I go, it actually makes sense to me why this guy is starting over Ansu. Like it wasn't about Ansu. I think it was just they had
Hmm.
all these competitions and they had forwards that had already been in the team, and
Yeah.
it made more sense to start other players.
And they have their own striker, that youth player who, Ansu arrives,
Yeah.
and the first day their own youth player scores a hat trick
Yeah. For,
in the first match of the season.
mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, wasn't that supposed to be Ansu's spot? Like, who they're gonna play, the Loney or
Yeah.
the youth guy?
Yeah, I mean, it was also on
That's
paper that he was supposed to fit there, but he wasn't. Like I said, their youth kid Ferguson is just a natural number 9,
right.
big body, and that's what they want in
Yeah.
that position. And so they're probably their best player it's João Pedro, right? Like João Pedro was the one who was playing where Ansu would play, and he was their best player. So it wound up being there was, and then the other two players on the wings in that 4-2-3-1 that Deserbi was playing, their wingers had to be wingers, and Ansu really isn't necessarily like a natural winger either. So I felt like on paper it would have made sense for him to fit there, but in terms of the depth chart and all that stuff, I see why he only played 1,000 minutes.
Yeah. If I'll say one last thing. If the club does not um want Ansu around this season, I hope they loan him out to Sevilla
Hmm.
so he gets to play under Garcia Pimienta.
Yeah, and I think with his character as well, as you said, I've never heard a bad story about Ansu. There's always little rumblings, and even with contract stuff, you always hear rumblings of a club's trying to force him out. And Ansu is squeaky clean, very much like Pedri. Like you cannot find a negative story about these kids, which is always a good sign.
His dad, though,
But I've never heard it tied back to him. I think, I mean, it's
right?
also his dad is his agent, so it's like, I mean, if you want to dig up dirt on agents, we could do that for years.
Hmm.
So the fact that like, oh, a negative story came out about an agent, well, it came out about his dad, and so yeah, I'm not totally sold on that stuff. So yeah, I would hope that he goes to Sevilla, where again his family arrived as immigrants to Spain, and so he came up in their academy a little bit, then obviously moved to Barca at a young age. So hopefully, yeah, it's just a nice little fit for him, and continue to speak Spanish, and that work out for him. Now back to that wing. Speaking of wingers that are just wingers, though, Alvaro asks, assuming that Nico Williams is our first priority, and the only way to make it happen is to sell one high-valued player in the transferable list, as per the Catalan media, who would you sell and why?
I might sell Frankie because of the salary and because of the transfer fee, and you might be able to flip that into Nico Williams and a quality midfielder.
I mean, I would sell Frankie too, but the question is, can you sell Frankie? When we talk about amortized,
No, no, he won't leave. He won't go.
exactly. So, I mean, who would be when would you part with Ronald Araujo or Kounde or
Nope.
no, right?
Um, maybe Kounde, but then again, you might need that money for if you can flip Kounde for, say, Nico Williams and Cancelo,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you have a solution there.
Pedri's an example. I think
But
Pedri's more valuable to Barcelona than he is to being sold by Barcelona.
oh, we're not selling Pedri.
Yeah.
Um, and if not, I would say, hey, Nico Williams, good luck to you, sir. If you want to come next summer,
Mm-hmm.
amazing. If not, good luck. I know he's like, um, very well liked. He seems like a very likable guy anyway. I also think he'll become a good footballer, um, a very good footballer even. Do I think it's the end of the world if we don't sign him? No, I would like us to sign him because I think that, it could be very, very good for us on that left wing. And I really like the chemistry that he already has with a lot of our
Mm-hmm.
players. But would I give up Ronald Araujo or Pedri or no, no way.
Yeah, I think he's on his way, and just like the way that the Euros have gone on. I'm not saying about like the vibes of Lamine Yamal and Nico Williams. I just mean all the reports that you're getting, and the fact that there's such strong interest. He knows their interests. Athletic clubs set their release clause, and not say that Barca are recovering financially, but based on their income and the wage bill and all that stuff, and the recoveries that they are making, to getting back to the 1-to-1, which we have a question about in a second here, that Nico Williams is the target. He is the first priority, and Barcelona is still a club. I'm actually reading the book Morbo by Phil Ball at the moment right now,
Hmm.
and one of the reminders about that history of Barcelona is that yes, Real Madrid occasionally will get players that Barcelona want, or I mean, of course, now other teams are getting those players too. But Nico Williams seems to want Barcelona, and the draw of Barcelona is still the draw of Barca. So they're going to
And I heard he's even willing to wait for one season.
exactly. So I think he's on his way. And I also noticed that. Have you heard all or anything about a pivot or anything like that? I think we've gone the song and dance again with Frankie de Jong. That now with Flick coming in and the idea of a double pivot, I think the number of midfielders that Barcelona have that in theory would play in that double pivot, whether it is Pedri or Gabi or de Jong, potentially not Gundogan, but regardless of what it is, I think it sounds like that there is no pivot or just lone pivot on the way, that it's either the market they don't like or what it is. The fact that you don't hear anything about that position anymore kind of lends itself to letting you know that, okay, the 55 million that Barca might have to spend this year, because they probably do have about 60 if they get back to the 1-to-1 to spend, it'll be on Nico Williams. And that'll be the one player. That'll be the one big signing. Because you know that also the board like to do that. That's the politics of it. They like to bring in the one flashy big name, and getting Nico Williams off the vibes of playing with Lamine Yamal and the Euro. Because Spain looks like the favorites at the moment. I'm not saying they're going to win it, but at the moment, and okay, we're bringing in this guy that helps Spain, was a starter along with Lamine Yamal, and so that's the big flashy signing. So speaking of the Euros, we're going to take a little quick Euro break, and then the rest of our show is as many of these other questions we can get in here. For me, I don't know. I feel like Spain, fortunately, is kind of where we get to start. I don't actually have to dig too many other places, because that Spain versus Germany game, it was played. I mean, it was pretty enjoyable, with except in the first 5 minutes when Toni Kroos, he did apologize, but when a Real Madrid player takes out Pedri for another 4 to 6 weeks, so it's an internal lateral sprain in his left knee. 4 to 6 weeks of recovery, no surgery. That I think is unfortunately the headline, a big thing, but obviously, I think for Barcelona, the headline has to be Lamine Yamal. I mean, Spain has a style, and they have a way they want to play, and it all works because Lamine Yamal can create the way he does. Because other teams have not figured out just how to shut him down for 90 minutes. And what I really liked about him at the Euros, the maturity, is that I thought David Raum did a really good job actually on Lamine Yamal in comparison to some of the
Hmm.
other left backs in the tournament, and yet he still gets the cross off for the goal. And he also had at least 3 to 4 dribbles where he makes something happen. And I think with Lamine Yamal, you talk about floors. I'm so excited by the fact that he's a player that, not to compare him to Ousmane Dembele, but it kind of is a similar role in terms of right winger. There were whole games where I would know in the first 5 to 10 minutes, I go, well, Dembele didn't bring his boots today. And you kind of get the sense, all
Right.
right, he's like not in this one. And then if he's up to it on the day, he's up to it on the day. And when we talk about Lamine Yamal's not ceiling, but when we talk about his floor in this year as a 17-year-old, there is
Hmm.
still
I like that.
be if he plays 60 minutes, there is still 3 to 4 moments in every game where even if a left back is doing well against him, that he's going to create and make something happen. And that is just what's so exciting and tantalizing about him, and why he is the starter, because it seems like his floor is, hey, I'm going to make something happen even in a match that I don't bring my best.
I mean, it's because his decision making is extraordinary.
Yeah.
So you don't see him take the wrong decision or make the wrong pass a lot. Sometimes you'll see him like lose the ball because he tried to make something happen, but that's okay. But he makes the right passes. He makes those right passes fast. He doesn't need the ball for a long time to be looking around the pitch for 30 seconds before knowing what to do with it. And that is why his floor is so high, because he's just fundamentally so sound. And how many assists does he have this tournament already? 4?
Yeah. I think it's 4. I think 2 in the knockouts.
Wow, that's just
Yeah.
incredible, isn't
And I
it?
know he hasn't scored any yet, but a reminder that if he does score in this tournament at all, all he has to do is score a goal, and he becomes the youngest goal scorer in Euro history. It's
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. I I think that's if we look at his game, goal scoring is kind of what is missing, right? He could score more goals. So once he adds more consistency there,
Mm-hmm. And he's been close too.
that kid can be a
I
force.
mean, he's been close too against Germany. He had that free kick that went to the wide, but it went
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
and
but you want to score goals, not just be close to scoring goals.
of course, of course. But I'm saying is like when
There are a lot of there are a lot of things in my life where I got close to, and it's not the same as getting it.
well, listen, I'm doing my work on the propaganda because there's a certain Portuguese forward that only makes about what 4% of his penalty kicks over the course of his career, or 7% of his penalty kicks over the course of his career, but yet everybody looks at
Oh, it's free kicks.
free kicks. I mean, sorry, not penalty kicks, free kicks. Yeah, exactly. So there's a
Yeah,
Portuguese forward that has a reputation of constantly scoring all the free kicks in the world and seems to still live off one or two free kicks that he made at Manchester United back in the day. And so all it
I don't,
is a little
I don't know. I don't know. I was telling my friends that yesterday. We were watching the game together, and like they still let Ronaldo take free kicks, like still
instead of
today.
Bruno
Like
Fernandes. Yeah,
he,
yeah.
he hasn't scored. He hasn't scored on for 5 years. Like, why would they let him take any? And then like he'll score a free kick that will deflect off the wall
Mm-hmm.
and roll over the line because the keeper had already gone to the other corner, and all his fanboys are out saying how he's the greatest, right? But
Well,
it is what it
he did
is.
have a pretty good rate at it was an above average rate at Real Madrid. His goal scoring rates all across
He did,
was up.
and at United as well.
Correct. But yeah, it's been a minute here. So I don't really think that's the only thing we have to talk about France Portugal because we already kind of brought that up. There was nothing else to talk about there. Kounde did make his penalty. I said I've been really happy with Kounde, and I'll say about Pedri too. I know we just talked about his injury, but in Spain, the discourse, and you can speak to this real quick. The discourse has been that he hasn't played well, but not to say I disagree with that, but I feel like Pedri, to go back to the Lamine Yamal argument, that Pedri for Spain, even in the games where it felt like he couldn't really put his fingerprint on it, I don't think he was poor. Like, I don't think he had any bad games for Spain. I think there were games that he influenced more than others, but I think he was doing his job. And I think that's a really hard thing with Pedri because I think we view him, not even Barcelona fans. I think Barcelona fans understand what he is, but I think fans outside of that say, okay, we're expecting him to be Musiala for Germany, but that's not who he is. Like he's a function player and a decision maker player, a player who moves the ball and tries to put others in fortuitous positions. Who Pedri uses his legs and moves and exactly like it's La Pasa. It's
Look,
game pace. So those are things that
look, Dan, it's really easy. Spain has probably been the best team of the tournament so
mhm.
far. Pedri is in the middle of that pitch.
Yep.
That, let's leave it at that.
Yep. The only other notes I have from the Euros and the Copa, watching those, is for the Copa. I think Brazil have obviously they've been hot and cold, but and they play tonight, and Araujo also plays tonight. But I think Rafinha's actually had a really good tournament. I've really enjoyed his time, and if anything, the last 2 months of last season plus this summer, even watching him for Brazil, I'm excited to see Rafinha under Flick. I think he is one of those players that I've really changed my tune on. I think again he came in, you're like, I mean, I didn't say this. I tried to warn people about his stuff at Leeds, but I actually think even in his late 20s, he's been better this last season, and I think he actually has another gear to go up. I don't think we've actually seen the best of Rafinha, and you can improve at 28 or 29, whatever he is. Like it's still possible to get better. And I have seen the last few months, I do think he's getting better, and I think Rafinha, his goal contributions are there, and very much again like the Pedri argument that if you see Rafinha for what he is and not what you want him to be or wish him to be or expect him to be because of the international jersey he wears, I think he's been really important for Brazil and arguably one of their better players throughout this tournament, honestly.
That's fair.
Yeah. And then the other last two notes I have is I don't know how much of it you've been watching, but to me, Spain, the other thing about Spain too is that Rodri has I think he was already the best pivot in world football, but he confirmed to me. I mean, he is. I think there's no number two. It's Rodri. And then on the other side, I think William Saliba.
I mean, there are hardly any pivots left anymore
Yeah,
anyway, right?
that's true.
So
Right. But just how important Rodri is, not only for Spain but in general. And then Saliba for France has been to me when talking about. I know it's just international stuff, but I watched him with Arsenal too. I think that guy has a stake and an argument to be the best center back in world football right now. Saliba is just really
I
fantastic.
I don't know because every time that I put on France, I just can't seem to stay away.
Well, I mean, he's a center back, so that's what I'm saying. It's
Mhm.
just, I think he's doing his job, but yeah, I can't speak for Mbappe and Chouamani and Kamavinga, but I can speak to Saliba being really sensational. So, all right, so let's try to see how many other of these questions we can answer in our short time left. We'll try to be a bit quicker with these answers too. This came from social media, from Twitter or X, but I like the question from Maximilian. I'd be interested in your highs and light lows in your time doing the podcast and as a Barca fan. Also, what discoveries and learnings have you made over 600 episodes? And um, yeah, I really like that question from Max, obviously, because it's a special little 600 question. So what I have, it's funny what I have learned, and actually, I'll show people here if you're watching on YouTube, give you some credence to do this. This mixer right here that we have that I've been using, I've basically been using that since I want to say 2018 or so. So I've been using the same old mixer. There's actually still dust on some of the knobs that I never use because I don't ever have multiple guests like that. So there's dust on the knobs. I need to clean it off. But this mixer is now gone to and now I'm moving in 2 weeks, so a fourth location. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that when we started the podcast, I didn't realize that there was an appetite for this, and there was an appetite for a weekly Barcelona podcast show. And even as other shows have popped up through the years, Siempre Positivo and Barca Talk and Mesqueum podcast and another Mesqueum podcast. And so other shows have popped up, and the community, the more it's been able to help each other, has been really important. And I've got to meet a lot of great people, and I've got to speak to a lot of great people, not really on social media, but here on the show. And it is funny that, Barca exists as this community that, as much as faces and names change, because I think that's been a part of it too, where I had kids who'd hit me up when they were in college or whatever that first year or two, and I haven't heard them or seen them on social media in 6-7 years, and I always go, what happened to that person, right? Because the desire for Barca and this kind of thing remains the same, but the names and the faces and the people change, and same with the players too. I was looking back on one of the YouTube videos I made in 2019, and for starters, I'm like, oh man, first year doing the YouTube channel, this production value isn't great. The thumbnail is terrible. Like all of these things that I've learned since then on like how to create a video, engaging video uh, on the YouTube channel. And even with the podcast, it's been talking this whole time. And for the podcast, it's interesting because people just kind of want to hear the parasocial relationship that's created with other people. And so they want to hear people know each other. They want to hear laughing together. They want to hear friendships. They want to feel like you're in the room with them. And that, I think, has been the consistent thing throughout. So as much as I've learned how to add technical stuff, like I use a new recording program that I didn't use in the first year. The first year we were using Skype, which obviously is now a year, age has gone by, is the idea of Skype. So that's what we were using in the beginning. It was just audio, and then we figured out video, and then I added elements to that. Now I'm using a different program that I'm able to pay for. So while the technology and things behind the scenes may have changed, the consistency of showing up every week, talking to the listeners in the same way, and trying to talk to guests that I enjoy to talk to, that has stayed consistent. And that is why the podcast still exists. And then the lowlights is whenever, for me, this has been, I know I'm going on a long here time, but this is, the stuff I don't really get to talk to on the show. But the lowlights have been the bad moments for Barca, because those are bad moments for me too, where I have to reevaluate things that I don't necessarily want to in life. This has always been a paid hobby. And there are times when I felt like it could have been more, but it's not. It's a paid hobby. It's not how I can make my living. It doesn't provide me health care and all those different problems that America might have that I've complained about in the past. And so I always have to decide, how much time can I put into this, and is this worth it, and how is this affecting the other parts of my life? And I think this last 2 years, as I've done the 5 headlines, I've enjoyed doing them. People have liked them, but unfortunately not enough people have liked them. With this season, I could say, all right, I can definitely do those again. So that means that I have to then reset, say, okay, how can I provide the same kind of value in less of my time behind the scenes? And so that's what I'm doing. I have some ideas for this season. I've been working out some stuff behind the scenes, like on different ideas I have as to what we're going to do now for match days I'm available for, and how can I take a step back in that. Because again, I get older and life changes behind the scenes as well. So the lowlights have been, for the example, when Barcelona got knocked out by Inter Milan and they were out of the group stage of the Champions League, or they're out of the Champions League in total in October, I looked at my numbers and I looked at the next shows afterwards, and I'm going, oh no, like we lost a third of our revenue. And I say we, but it's me. So I lost a third of my revenue on the show overnight because of a bad result. The difference between a 2-1 win and a 2-1 loss is the difference between my accountant saying, hey, are you sure? Or me being able to say confidently, like, okay, I'm getting enough people. And then, because it's all behind the scenes, it's sponsors, it's the podcast network, it's, it's all the little things that allow me to do something. And even to the point with YouTube, it's a lot easier to sell to sponsors when you're getting 15,000 views or 10,000 views on a video, as opposed to when Barcelona are not in the Champions League and I'm getting 1,500 or 2,000. And it's a lot harder to have those conversations with sponsors when you're getting half or a third or a fifth of the number of views. So the lowlights are whenever you're seeing Barcelona struggle and fail, the show also kind of struggles and fails. And so having that not up to me, those are the lowlights, when I feel like I have no control over that. And then I have to reevaluate how long I can keep doing this, or what I can do, or what the role that this plays in my life is, and how much time I can contribute to it. And then the highs are the other reverse of that, when exciting things happen, and when I have something pop off, or you get your, or YouTube kind of gives you that little thing that says, hey, this is your second highest video you've ever done in 5 years or whatever. Or when, even the highlights are the great shows, when I have a really great show and I say, hey, I really enjoyed that. That was a good show. And I know even if not that many people listen to it, I can just give it to the internet gods and say, okay, I hope you enjoy that. And I know that it was a good show, and I can have confidence in that. So I think those are the highlights.
Yeah, you can't be doing too bad if you can afford an account.
Well, that's because I'm freelance and it's too confusing. So I'm not telling you how, I didn't tell you the what I give him, but I'm telling you from my tax. It's not an accountant; it's a tax guy. So when I go to do my taxes and I give him my 11 or whatever different streams of everywhere, and he goes, "This doesn't add up to that much," but but I'm glad that we all have it sorted out. He makes sure that he gets me as much deductions as I possibly can, because when you're freelance, you can't just it doesn't. We're not getting into taxes at this point, in American taxes at this point. So we got a few more questions to answer.
No. My highlight was the Barcelona podcast we recorded without you, in which we interviewed Pep Guardiola.
Oh, that was a great show. I was brought to tears. It was unbelievable. Highlights. Speaking of interviewing Ronald de Boer, which we did in I believe that was 2020 or maybe 2019. I don't remember if that was before or after the pandemic, but just like knowing that I could get a big name like that was really cool. I think.
I didn't know you interviewed him. That guy is a cool guy.
He's a kid.
I'll tell you an anecdote. His wife has, I think, a moving company or something like that. And sometimes when they're short of manpower, he pitches in. So he just randomly shows up at people's houses saying, "Hey, yeah, I'm helping you guys move today."
Yeah.
And like nobody expects it because it's quite a common name. His last name is like not that uncommon. So.
And then here's Ronald de Boer.
Some people have like the Ronald de Boer helping them with their move. Yeah.
Yeah, we also had Natasha Andanova was on the show, one of the Femini players originally. This is like, the way I thought about it too with the highlights is that to watch the Femini, like we started in 2017, the year that women's football was professionalized in Spain. So to see where the Femini was from 2017 to 2023, where again, in 2017, we were able to get one of the Femini players to come on the show. Now, I mean, that now there's no shot. Right. There's no opportunity. So I think, that's also what I've learned too, that, I could continue to try to push the envelope on this stuff, but it's also that, I know what I can handle and take on. So I would love to do bigger interviews and things like that, but it's a matter of time. And, as I've said many times, if there's a guest that people want over the last 6, 7 years, I promise you, I have sent a message. I've sent a message to many former Barcelona players. I've sent a message to many of the pundits. I've sent a message to the other YouTube personalities, or like if you thought about it, I've probably sent a message, and either didn't receive one, or the emails are, or it died, or it fizzled out, or didn't respond, or so that's the whole thing. So that's why you see what you have. All right, let's see. Maybe we can answer a few more questions here. Here's one for you in particular that you might know about. Abbas asks, what do you think would be the date for the Camp Nou return? He says guaranteed, but nobody knows that. So at the moment, what is the Camp Nou return?
Like, I think they're talking about November, December. I do see progress. So they're building all of these, putting up all these support beams around the stadium. I live right behind the stadium. Wait, let me take my camera.
Knows for the audio, he's picking his camera up, and I'll do the little play-by-play.
Wait,
Better job as a broadcaster. It's
this app does not actually let me invert the camera.
It does not.
No, because I would be able to show you the cranes that are visible from my balcony. But oh well. I do see progress. They're building more and more support beams. However, I'm not an architect. I'm not a construction engineer. You know, I can put together an IKEA closet. That's about it. So, the club says that it's going great. People who are not really linked to the club say that it's a disaster. There's a lot of interest there. I just hope it's going to be ready when they say it's going to be ready.
Mm-hmm.
But also, according to what I understand, if it is not ready in time, the construction company Limac pays Barcelona €1 million a day.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not overly I'm concerned, but not overly concerned.
I did see that Barcelona filed for an exception with UEFA for having the final to do a multiple stadium for their Champions League home matches. So the fact that they put in that request for the final Champions League group stage date, which is in, I think, the end of December.
Correct.
So that does say that they're actually on paper optimistic, and they're not just like throwing things out there. So you don't file that unless you're saying, hey, we're going to push for this exception because we're pretty confident at the end of November. So I would say yes, end of November.
Or you file that because you want to transmit confidence and you're attracting sponsors.
True, that's true too. Similar question, Eric asks, and then again, shout out to Eric. He's actually been local, but I didn't even know this. Through the podcast, I learned that about someone I had a listener into town with me, which again, it would be a lot different if it was in a different place. I also am in New York, very close to the city, so it's not like that crazy. I have met people who listen to the podcast, so shouts to all of them. But yeah, and I've watched games with Eric here. He lives 10 minutes away. But Eric asked, when should we find out when and if the club can return to the 1-to-1 spending? I had heard that it was the end of June, but my understanding now is that it's whenever it's La Liga, whenever the budget is due for a Liga, whenever the Liga sets the budget for next season, which it doesn't usually fall between the end of July and like the second week of August prior to the Liga beginning, because that's when registrations then become due as well, like whatever it's like August 10th or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's very weird. I think the end of June is more of the fiscal date.
Right.
But now we're still hearing Tebas say, well, Barcelona has to do a couple of things and then they'll be back in one-on-one spending, which means that the end of June was not the be-all and end-all of returning to the one-on-one rule or not. So at this point, who knows, man? Like, honestly, like, after all of these summers, we should already be experts.
Right. But it's also every year. Like,
it's still so murky, and even the one-on-one rule, where they say for every all the money that you spend, or all the money that all the players that you sell, or money that you save on players, you can spend that same money. I'm like, okay, wait, but the club has to sell players in order to be able to spend money on transfers. That's the one-on-one rule. I thought there's a point where the club is so healthy that you can just sign players and don't have to worry about selling players.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even the financial report that was due to come out, usually comes out for June. That didn't trickle out until what was it, last like November. So I always like planned to do a show. I had planned to do a show about like reporting on last year's report as in the previous season, and it just like never trickled out the way it was supposed to. And yeah, those things wind up changing quite a bit. Back to the on-field.
Right. And they still haven't found a new buyer for Barca Studios.
Yeah.
And the sponsorship with Nike still has not been announced, even though I think they're now already producing jerseys.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of it will come down to that contract with Nike and the renewal fee that is rumored to be 100 million or so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's just such a big amount of money, and that's also guarantees for the future. Unlike what some, as in contracts are guarantees. On the field, Pancho asks, what is your realistic expectation for Flick's first season in charge? And which player do you expect to make the jump from the B team to the first team? Well, for the second part of that, I take you back to last week, if you didn't see it, the La Masia thing I did, where we pretty much ranked and we spoke about every player that we think could even push to the first team for 5 to 15 appearances. That was the threshold. So that was last week. I'm not going to relitigate that. Watch last week's show. I highly recommend it. But yeah, what is your realistic expectation for Flick's first season in charge?
I'll take the second question first, and I'll say I think Hector Ford is considered a B team player still.
He is.
So that would be my pick. And my expectation for Flick, I just hope that like my expectation is more fun football. You know, less matches that I want to gouge my eyes out. I'm sorry, Xavi. You know, that's my expectation. Titles, I think we're still far from competing in Europe for an actual spot in the final, although you never know. And I do think Madrid is looking incredibly strong with the additions to their squad.
Mm-hmm.
So, which might implode because it might be that mix of players is going to be counterproductive to a solid football team, and they're losing pros as well. But you know, I just want us to play fun football and like to not give up on the title after 4 months of the season. You know, to be in it for a while, and then maybe we win it, maybe we don't. Not the most important thing to me. I just want to enjoy the season.
Yeah. I mean, Real Madrid, obviously, to your point, they have an exceptional squad, but there's also a lot of players that have to be fit in, and there is only 11 spots to start, and things turn sour very quickly if things don't work out. And again, also in the book Morbo that I'm reading, a lot of times with Real Madrid, things are going well, and then they're not going well in the locker room or a manager. You know, it's the pressure of Real Madrid is real as well. So you never know. But yes, they have.
And they might also miss Tony Kroos because they're not really having. They don't really have anybody in midfield who can organize that team anymore without it. So we'll see.
Yep. Okay, so I think we have a little bit, just 2 or 3 more questions here. Tomas asks, do you think Eric can make a return at being Eric Garcia, especially if Kounde or someone gets on the line? Okay, we don't need to finish that question. I think he is best served elsewhere. He was so good with Girona. I don't know why he as a player would want to return. Like, I know that his heart might be in Barcelona. He wants to come back. But yeah, I think that what he showed with Girona, if I'm him and I have that success there, I'm going right back. I'm saying, hey, can you sign me permanently? Because this is where, and I also think that was his level, which is they contended for the Liga. They're going to be in the Champions League next season. Eric Garcia is going to play in the Champions League next season, but to your point, I don't think it's for Barcelona. I think it needs to be for Girona. And because he came on a free, and because his wages aren't that high, again, if he's able to sign for Girona, he'll likely make more money. I know Girona has less money up front than Barcelona, but in theory, his wages, he could move from what I think he's at like 4 now, and he could go to 6 or 7 for Girona. They should be able to afford that with some Champions League money coming in, as well as having just sold some of their Alex Garcia as well. Like they have to buy and spend money, sure, but they're not going to be going out and getting huge numbers. So I think if you're Eric Garcia, go get your bag at Girona, play in the Champions League, and I think that's totally fair where his career lies. Yep. All right. So then I think we have one more question, last question here from I think it says Kessier, or Kessie. There's been rumors of Philijan, the Hull City player. What's your take on that? And also looking at the squad on paper, this is a team that can rival almost any team in Europe, but it looks like they're lacking something. So what is the X factor needed to push this team to higher heights? I think that the Hull City player is not necessarily, I think that was partly due to the agents. I think he might have been linked to Barcelona, but I think that has to do with him increasing. I think he's going to be in the EPL. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that he's not signing in the EPL. To get him from Hull City to Barcelona, it would be an overpay for Barca. It doesn't make any sense. And I think if they're looking for other,
Yeah.
there are other options out there.
The word on the street is that his agent made a big deal of coming to Barcelona and putting pictures of Instagram pictures online of him, like being seen in Barcelona, being seen at the office of the club, in order to raise his profile in the Premier League.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, that's what it felt like to me the whole time. So the final question is, so what does the X factor need to push this team to higher heights? I think they need about 80% of the squad. I know this isn't really an X factor, but I think that like 80% of the squad needs to click. It just needs to kind of work. To your point, it felt like I could go after so many matches last year. I felt like I could individually say, all right, this player did well, this player didn't. This player did well, this player didn't. And I think this season, the X factor is whether or not, to your point, we could go after a game and say, hey, Barcelona played well, right? Everybody on the team, it kind of clicked and they played well. Or if they do a stinker, it's like, okay, the whole team kind of played poor and it all wasn't working out. I think if we could say that and speak about a team better as a unit this year, I think that's mean that they're probably playing better.
yeah, and I think for success, in terms of wins, whether competing for the league, like really competing until the end, or doing well in the Champions League, the X factor might be, um, you know, will Lewandowski actually perform?
Sure.
And if he doesn't, will somebody unexpectedly step up and really provide goals for us or not?
Yep. That's
Which might make somebody like Ansu or Ferran the X factor, right?
mm-hmm. Yeah, totally agree. I mean, when they won the title 2 years ago, you could speak a lot about Lewandowski and Ter Stegen, and that's kind of what it comes down to. Is the ball in the back of the net against you? Are you putting the ball in the back of the net for you? And your center forward is tasked quite a bit to do that. So yes, unfortunately, football at the end of the day does boil down just to goals and who's scoring goals and how you win games and things like that. And we have all this stuff going on in the background. And to create 600 podcasts, the real X factor there is stopping your recording and then editing and hitting publish. If you don't publish, that is really the X factor. It just comes down to hitting publish at the end of the day. And then all the in the middle, who cares about those? So we want to thank Levon again for, I don't know how many appearances you've now made in 600. Is it maybe, what do you think, 50, 40, 50? It's been quite a bit.
God, yeah. I don't know if you've got if you got enlisted, but I'd be curious to find out.
Every few years I try to do my homework and feel like it's worth it. So yeah, I'll go back.
It feels like 500.
All right, appreciate it. Well, if the club,
No,
everyone's
it might be like 40, something like that.
Yeah. So I
didn't count. I always have a good time talking to you, so it's all good.
Yeah, so appreciate you as well, and appreciate the Patreons. Said those are the guaranteed questions, $3 when I do these listener questions. Also, by the way, if you sign up for Patreon and you DM me a question, it's guaranteed that I will ask it on the podcast, even if I forget about it, because it might get lost in all the other nonsense and stuff I have. Just even remind me. If you ask the question on Patreon, also remind me, hey, I had this question. Can you answer it on the show? And I will answer it on the show, guaranteed. We're also, again, on X, on Instagram, close Facebook group, and everywhere else as well, on Discord. Good rating on the podcast app. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. They're the easiest, freest, and a huge help. That's how I talk to sponsors and the numbers I get to use for that. And then most importantly, thanks so much for listening to the show. Until next time, I guess I don't think I'm going to do another 600. I can almost guarantee on that. But maybe I'll get to 1,000. Who knows? And how quickly I can get to that depends on how well Barca does and how many people listen and follow and all those different things. So again, good luck with the next 400 to me, I guess. So we'll talk to you soon. And Forza Barca.
Just Barca.